So today we are going to discuss CVP analysis. Clear? CVP, cost, volume and profit. See, volume means volume of production. That means how many you are going to produce. 10 pen, 1 lakh pen, 1,50,000 pen. So as you are changing your decision regarding the volume, how many you are going to produce, depend upon this, your cost will be different, right? If you want to produce 2 lakhs rather than if you produce 2 lakh rather than 1 lakh, in that case cost obviously will be some sort of more or less profit. If you can manage yourself to sell more, this is normal scenario that you can expect more profit from that. If you can manage yourself to sell less, in that case it may be possible that less profit will be generated. So in every case, these two components, one is cost, another is profit. These two components are closely related with the volume of production and sale, right? So in this chapter, we try to find out this relationship. আমরা এদের মধ্যে একটা relationship build up করার চেষ্টা করব. Find out this relationship and depend upon that relationship, we will go through some discussion. Clear? Which is very much important for start any kinds of business, operate any kinds of business. So আমরা দেখি ফার্স্ট আমরা যেটা নিয়ে আলোচনা করব BEP elaborately we say this is break even point. Why we are saying about this? Suppose you are the business people and doing business with some kinds of products. As for example, you are dealing with garments. Clear? So after fulfilling your total shop with different kinds of garments, the first question arises in your head. Being a business people, the first question may be how much minimum sale there should be so that you can overcome all your kinds of cost. All kinds of cost. And afterwards, profit may be there. Clear? So we need to find out the minimum amount of production, minimum amount of sales, so that we can overcome all kinds of cost. After overcoming all kinds of cost, we can, if you can generate any kinds of contribution, that contribution total will be a kind of profit for you. I'm like a ছোট example. Suppose to start a kinds of shop, you invest $100. To invest a garments shop, you invest already $100. Now the question is, after starting the shop, you start selling piece by piece, right? So when you are selling a specific garment, specific shop, suppose as for example, when you are selling a t-shirt, as for example the t-shirt price is $2. You can't say within that $2 there is a portion of profit. Profit আছে বলতে পারবা। $2 is a kind of revenue, and your first intention should be that is how you can manage yourself to overcome the invested $100 as early as possible, because afterward you can generate some kinds of profit. And how much profit will be there? The profit is the contribution generated. বসে যাও, the contribution generated. আচ্ছা আপনার the profit is how much contribution you are generated. Suppose your invested dollar was 100 as according to our example. So when you overcome $100, that means all your cost overcome. Now, after completing all your cost, when you can manage yourself to sell one single unit, as for example, one t-shirt, that is $3. এই $3 এর মধ্যে some kinds of variable cost may be there, কিছু variable cost থাকবে, but there will be no sort of fixed cost because fixed cost is already overcome, right? So the difference is called contribution, and that contribution will be your profit. So that maximum point actually comes through the calculation of this BEP, break-even point. So theoretically we can say break-even is a specific point when the company's contribution equal to just like the total fixed cost. Or you can say on the other way, that is break-even is a point when the company can manage itself to overcome all kinds of costs already incurred. Clear? যে ব্রেক ইভেন হচ্ছে একটা পয়েন্ট যখন কোম্পানি কি করতে পারে, সে তার প্রিভিয়াস যে সমস্ত খরচ তুলে নিয়ে আসতে পারে। মোর প্রিসাইসলি আমরা বলতে পারি ব্রেক ইভেন একটা পয়েন্ট যেখানে কন্ট্রিবিউশন ফিক্সড কস্টের সমান হয়। সো থিওরিটিক্যালি ইউ ক্যান সে ব্রেক ইভেন ইজ এ পয়েন্ট when fixed cost FC, suppose as for example FC is fixed cost equal to contribution. Now the fact is fixed cost FC, fixed cost and contribution. We know contribution per unit, suppose selling price per unit is P and variable cost per unit is V. So this is the contribution per unit. So now we are working here the contribution as a whole, right? So contribution, suppose you are producing and selling Q number of unit. Per unit contribution is this much, P minus V. So how many contribution or how much contribution is there? Multiply by total amount of unit that you sold out, right? So theoretically we can say fixed cost equal to contribution, and from that we can find out this formula. So now you can find out Q, break-even quantity equal to fixed cost divided by P minus V. So you can say break-even quantity, that means minimum number of unit that you have to produce and sold out so that you can overcome your fixed cost. So that is Q equal to fixed cost divided by selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit equal to contribution per unit. So you can say as a whole break-even quantity equal to fixed cost divided by contribution per unit. Clear? So here it will provide you number of unit that you have to produce and sold out to overcome your initial fixed cost. And after overcoming your initial fixed cost, there is no kinds of fixed cost and there is no other kinds of cost rather than variable cost. Fixed cost to levels. এরপরে আমার কি কস্ট থাকবে? শুধুমাত্র variable cost, production related variable cost. Clear? So this is the break-even quantity. Now the thing is, if you can find out the break-even quantity and if the selling price per unit is P, then you can find out break-even sales volume as well. Break-even sales volume. What is break-even sales volume? Break-even sales volume means that is the revenue generated by sold out or by selling the break-even quantity. Break-even quantity বাজারে বিক্রি করেন কত টাকা revenue generate করা যায়, that is your sales volume. So if you can find out the break-even quantity and selling price per unit, in that case your break-even sales volume will be PQ. Clear? So these are the two components that you can find out. One is break-even quantity, another is break-even sales volume. What's the relationship between these two? That is break-even sales volume is the revenue generated by selling the break-even quantity in the market. তাহলে কত টাকা জেনারেট হবে? P dollar per unit into quantity sold out. Clear? So this is all about. Now আমরা এখানে যেটা বের করলাম, that is one is we find out break-even quantity Q, which is fixed cost divided by P minus V, and another is break-even sales volume. Sales volume, which is break-even quantity into selling price per unit. Clear? Now the thing is, to find out this break-even sales volume, we have discussed initially we need to find out the break-even quantity. But in some cases you can be provided contribution margin, or CS ratio, which is called CS ratio, contribution to sales ratio, or it is also called contribution margin. In some cases, you guys may be provided CS ratio. Suppose CS ratio is 20%, as for example. What does it mean? CS ratio means contribution to sales ratio. Contribution to sales ratio. If CS ratio is 20%, the meaning is if you can sell a specific product at $100, within that $100, $20 will be your contribution and remaining $80 will be your variable cost. So as a whole, you can say that is CS ratio, contribution to sales ratio means that is the contribution generated in per dollar of sale. এটা আমি $100 এ compare করতে পারি. Even I can compare this at $1. So if you can manage yourself to sell $1, within that $1, 0.20 cent will be your contribution and 0.80 cent or 80 cent you can say, $0.2 and $0.8. $0.8 will be your variable cost. So if you guys are provided contribution margin or CS ratio, in that case you can directly find out the sales volume by or fixed cost divided by CS ratio. That means in the case of having CS ratio and fixed cost, you can directly find out the break-even sales volume. তখন আর quantity বের করতে হচ্ছে না. Clear? Now the fact is, if you have the break-even sales volume, that means which is converted into dollar. এটা তো ডলার দিবে. If you have the break-even sales volume, and if you have the selling price per unit, in that case you can find out that is when you divide this by selling price per unit, it will provide you the break-even quantity. Clear? So we need to build up this relationship and you need to understand this relationship in between these two. বোঝা গেছে? Now so up to this level of discussion, we are not talking about profit or loss. We are talking that is minimum amount to be overcome so that we can overcome our initial invested fixed cost. And after that, if any contribution generated, that will be regarded as a kind of profit, normal. আমরা BEP quantity নিয়ে আলোচনা করলাম, BEP sales volume নিয়ে আলোচনা করলাম. Now the thing is, আমরা একটা গ্রাফ নিয়ে আলোচনা করব, BEP point. BEP point. The graph নিয়ে আলোচনা করব. The graph is very much important because different types of question will be asked through this graph. According to horizontal axis, we actually plot number of units produced and sold out. And according to vertical axis, we will plot cost as well as selling price. তাহলে এইভাবে আমরা বসাবো ইউনিট, that is unit এবং এখানে আমরা বসাবো cost and price. The thing is, suppose we guys want to set up a specific manufacturing plant where we'll produce these kinds of pen. Clear? Now the thing is, before making any kinds of production, before starting any kinds of production, first of all we have to build up the infrastructure. We have to buy land. We have to set up different kinds of machineries, plant, etc., etc. That means before making any kinds of production, we need to go through a specific cost, infrastructure building cost. So this is a fixed amount of cost before starting any kinds of production. So we can say, suppose this much, this portion is fixed cost. Now the fact is, now you are in this position. You produced 0 unit, but this much cost is already have been generated, fixed cost. Now the thing is, if your company collapsed at this position, or if your company is banned in this position for any purpose, In that case, this fixed cost remain as a kind of cost and it will be regarded as a loss for the business organization without generating any kinds of production. Now, as you start producing number of pens, number of finished item, a specific amount of variable cost will be related there or will be there, right? So as you are producing more, a constant amount of variable cost of production related variable cost will be added there, and that's why the line will be just like this. This is, we can say, total cost line. Why this is total cost line? This portion is called variable cost per unit quantity produced. Suppose if you want to inform yourself what will be the total cost of producing this much unit. To producing this much unit, your total cost will be this much. Variable portion, fixed portion. So this is the way how we can find out the total cost of producing any amount of unit. Clear? Now we have produced a number of unit. Now our task is to sell that unit in the market. So when you step forward in the market, you do not sell any amount still. That means your revenue is zero. As you start selling, that means there will be a selling price per unit, initially fixed, right? So as you start selling number of unit, a constant amount will be generated, or a constant amount of revenue will be generated, right? So the cost line will be, or the revenue line will be, sorry, this is TR line, total revenue line. This portion is B. This portion of ingredients is called selling price per unit. Now you can say why the line actually segmented upward to this total cost. It may be parallel. Parallel hote parto na. Kintu this revenue line always segmented and go through upward to the total cost line. Why? Because we always try to set up our selling price per unit more than our variable cost per unit. So that's why the ingredients will be more. Clear? And the segmented point of these two lines, this is called BEP. This is called BEP point. If you go through lower, this much portion, this is called Q, because here we are plotting quantity produced and sold out. This is Q. That means at BEP, your quantity produced and sold out should be this much. Now what will be the cost and revenue? This much. Through this vertical line, we are trying to find out cost and price as well. So this amount is your total cost of producing Q, and this amount is also your total price of selling Q. Clear? Because we are combining two different graphs as in a specific graph. দুটোকে একটা করছি না, একটা কস্ট কে নিয়ে আসছি, একটা রেভিনিউ কে নিয়ে আসছি। ক্লিয়ার? তাহলে খেয়াল করে দেখো, from this graph we can say at BEP my total cost and total revenue will be equal. So we can say at BEP total cost and total revenue, total cost TC and TR of producing Q equal to equal. আমরা এখান থেকে ওই যে Q আগে বের করতে পারি। দেন আসো এটা যদি বোঝা যায়, then focus. So this portion up to this portion, see, up to this portion your revenue line is lower than your total cost line, and as you go upward the total cost portion is completed, and this level, after this level the revenue line upward than your cost line. তাহলে এই পর্যন্ত আমরা বলতে পারি we are covering the cost, কারণ কস্ট লাইন উপরে ছিল, যত বেশি যাচ্ছে তত কি হচ্ছে, কস্ট কভার হচ্ছে, and afterward my revenue is more than cost. That means cost have been covered, this portion of total cost have been covered, and this portion regarded as profit. So we can say this portion is, this is loss portion and this is profit portion. So we can't say before this BEP we are generating any kinds of profit. Before this P we are generating revenue and overcoming cost. After this point we have overcome all kinds of cost, and per unit contribution is regarded as a kind of profit or loss. Clear? So this is normally BEP point graph. Now the question is, if you guys are very much clear about this level of discussion or up to this level of discussion, so it is clear this is the minimum amount of production or sale, so or minimum amount that you have to sold out to overcome your all kinds of cost. Now the question is budgeting. How much or how many you are budgeting to produce or sell? Obviously your budget should be more than BEP. Suppose this is your budget or target sale. Target or budgeted sale. Budget sale কখনো BEP এর নিচে হবে, because if your target or budget is less than BEP, that means you are in loss position. So obviously your target sale or budget sale will be more than the BEP. So this portion is target sale, and this portion is this portion is BEP sale. Clear? তাহলে এই টোটাল পোরশন থেকে যদি আমি এই পোরশনটাকে বাদ দিয়ে দিই, মাঝে একটু পাওয়া যায় না? You can have this mid level. This is called margin of safety. So how we are getting this margin of safety? This margin of safety means target sale So how we are getting this margin of safety? We are getting this margin of safety from deducting the BEP quantity from the target cell. So target cell minus BEP cell. BEP cell. And normally we try to measure this as a percentage of total target cell. So if you want to find out the percentage, that means by target cell into 100, it will provide you the percentage of margin of safety. As for example, if your target cell target is to sell $100, and if your BEP sale is, as for example, $40, in that case what will be the margin of safety? Target cell minus BEP cell, it will provide you the midpoint, divide by, we need to find out this percentage, divide by 100 into 100. So it will provide me, suppose এটা কত আসবে? এটা আসবে আমাদের ছিল কত টার্গেট 60% is না? 60%. That means within my target cell $100, within my target cell 60% will be my margin of safety, and remaining 40% will be obviously the BEP, because target is overcoming BEP and then make some portion of margin of safety. Clear? So within this $100, 60% will be my margin of safety, and $40 will be my BEP. Clear? বোঝা গেছে margin of safety? So margin of safety কে আমরা যদি elaborately discuss করি, what do you mean by margin of safety? That is that portion of sale within which there is no question about being worried, because if you remain yourself within this portion, that means you are generating profit. But if you go or if you enter within this portion, that means you are generating loss, not profit. Clear? Okay, so this is all about margin of safety. Now we'll discuss from this we can build up a relationship between BEP and margin of safety. So if anything is provided, we can find out the another one. If you guys are very much clear about the relationship between these two components, right? Now we're gonna start discussing being a business people. Question is generating profit, or you can say target profit. Up to this level of discussion, Up to this level of discussion, we are always try to think about the minimum amount of seller, minimum amount of production, minimum amount of sales, so that you can overcome the fixed cost. We are not talking about profit. But being a business people, main target or main focus is to generate profit. So obviously, when you are preparing any kinds of budget, that means when you are the part of making budget, right? Or when you are the part of decision maker who is deciding about budget, in setting up the budget, it is obvious that there should be a question about profit and there should be a target profit, right? If the thing is target profit, you need to know how much or how many have to produce so that I can generate this amount of profit. That is target profit, right? So in that case, when there is a question about target profit, the amount that you have to produce and sell, suppose as for example Q quantity, it will be here your discussion or your focus is to overcome fixed cost first and then make some target profit. What should be the number when you divide this by P minus V, that is contribution per unit. So when you are dividing fixed cost by contribution per unit, it is generating BEP quantity. When there is fixed cost and target profit question, divided by contribution per unit, it will provide you the number of units that much to be produced and sold out to overcome fixed cost and make some target profit. Clear? So it will provide you the unit, and if you go through Q into selling price per unit, it will just provide you the total sales volume to generate that specific amount of target profit. Clear? So this is all the discussion regarding CVP analysis. So short ekta chapter ebong sob kichhui ki conceptual. If you are very much clear about building the relationship between these components, then any kinds of question, it is very much easier to go through. যখন কোনো question, when you guys are facing problem related any kinds of question related to CVP analysis, first try to find out what the component that you guys are provided. Write down that, try to make the relationship to us to find out the question answer. Clear? Relationship target focus করবেন তাহলে বোঝা গেছে this was about CVP analysis. Okay, thank you. Now the class